What's good, YouTube? Today in this video, I'm going to be going over a very important article on themostimportantnews.com. And as you guys know, I've been making a lot of videos reading over the articles on this website because they make very important warnings, and I feel like they have a lot of truth to them as well. So, yeah, I'm going to just get right into it right now. And it says, brace yourselves because what they have planned is going to absolutely devastate the U.S. economy. Came out a few days ago, as you can see. Goes on to say, do you remember what happened in 2008? Question mark. Many people believe that another historic financial disaster is coming and that it will absolutely devastate the U.S. economy. That's definitely the case, by the way. Here's the thing, folks. The signs are in your face, right? All of these signs are in your face. And what signs am I talking about? I'm talking about the signs of the economic disaster that's coming. And what we're seeing right now is already bad in itself, but it's nothing compared to what they have planned and what's going to be happening in the near future. And like I said before, and I'm going to say it again too. I've said this a lot of times, but I'm going to say it again. But we don't know exactly when it's going to happen. We don't know the day that it's going to happen. We don't know when it's going to happen, but we know that it's coming. And we know that they're planning much bigger things in the future. And what those things that they have planned are going to make it look like everything that we've experienced over the past few years was just nothing in comparison. So that's why it's very important to prepare yourself for what's to come, because these people, they don't care about you. They want you to suffer. They want you to struggle to make ends meet. They want you to be, working these garbage slave jobs that pay you terrible, unsustainable wages, right? And that problem is continuing to get worse and worse and worse as inflation continues to eat away at people's savings. So, yeah, do what you can to prepare yourselves as much as you possibly can. Do what you can to educate yourselves and become as self-reliant as you possibly can. I know it's really hard and it's getting harder, but if you're not, making progress, and if you're not trying to learn these things and trying your best to put yourself in a better position as much as you possibly can, then you're just going to be left behind, So that's why it's so important to prepare yourselves as much as you possibly can. It goes on to say, earlier this week, I wrote about an investor named Michael Burry that has actually bet $1.6 billion that the stock market is going to crash. He made all the right moves in 2008, and he fully intends to be proven right once again in 2023. Of course, current conditions definitely resemble 2008 in so many ways. Also, another thing I wanted to say too, what's coming is going to be much worse than what happened in 2008, which was, in basically 2008, they had another economic disaster, right? And that's nothing. What happened in 2008 is nothing compared to what's going to be happening in the future. So, yeah, I know I've said that a lot of times, about how what's coming is going to make everything we've already seen look like nothing, but it's the truth. And I can't stress that enough. And I will always stand firm on that. But another thing too, you don't want to be one of those people that get caught off guard when, things really get ugly out here. You don't want to be like, those people in 2020 that got extremely caught off guard and, they were panic buying things in grocery stores when, these shutdowns happened and when all of these crazy things went down in 2020, right? You don't want to be one of those people that get caught off guard and, trying to prepare at the last second and trying to, do all these things when it's already too late. You want to prepare ahead of time so that you're ready before everybody else is, and so that you don't end up being one of those people that get caught off guard, and then you end up paying the consequences or suffering the consequences for not preparing ahead of time. So yeah, the longer you wait, the worse it's going to be. So yeah, it goes on to say the residential housing market is so dead right now, and commercial real estate prices are plummeting at a very frightening pace. Unfortunately, officials at the Federal Reserve are making it quite clear that they are not done strangling the economy. And that's another thing too. These types of people, the Federal Reserve doesn't care about you. Of course, they play a big role in the economic situation that we're experiencing right now. They directly are responsible for, the inflation and problem and things like that, and all of the money printing. And another thing about the Federal Reserve is that they actually recently rolled out their FedNow payment system as well. I believe it was last month that they did that, but yeah, they recently did that as well. But they're actually puppets for the people that actually run this world. So yeah, but they still play a big role in all of these things, and they're on board with the agendas, and they're a part of the problem themselves. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. It goes on to say this week mortgage rates jumped above the 7% mark to the highest level that we have seen in more than 20 years. Mortgage rates surpassed 7% this week, hitting the highest level in more than 2 decades. The average rate on the popular 30-year fixed mortgage increased to 7.09% this week, up from 6.96% the week prior. According to Freddie Mac's release on Thursday, that's the highest point since the first week of April 2002, and marks just the third time rates have exceeded 7% since then. It's so annoying when they have these ads all over the place and whatnot. Get that thing out of here. It goes on to say the last times were in October and November of last year when the rate reached 7.08%. Needless to say, high mortgage rates have been crippling the housing market in recent months. At the midpoint of this year, existing home sales were down a whopping 18.9%. That makes sense why that is, by the way. From the same time in 2022, total existing home sales completed transactions that include single-family homes, townhomes, condominiums, and co-ops receded 3.3% from May to a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 4.16 million in June. Year-over-year sales fell 18.9%, down from 5.13 million in June of 2022. There are certainly lots of people out there that would like to buy homes, but thanks to how high mortgage rates have become, they simply cannot afford to do so. Exactly. That's another thing too. The housing prices are insanely through the roof as well. And that's also by design. Goes on to say housing has become extremely unaffordable in this country. That is very true. According to Redfin, the percentage of teachers that can afford to buy a home close to the school where they work has fallen to just 12%. So, I mean, I already knew that the vast majority of, people couldn't afford these expensive houses to begin with, but that's pretty wild, to be honest. It's ridiculous, though, The cost of everything is going up. It's not even just housing, but food costs, vehicle repair costs, gas, insurance, internet, phone bill, so many different things, right? And that also doesn't even factor in, those expenses don't even factor in the yearly tax that you have to pay as well to the IRS every single year, right? Like, this system is so blatantly designed to keep you on the hamster wheel for your entire life. But like I said, do what you can, folks. Do what you can to, increase your sources of income, have multiple sources of income, educate yourself on things like investing. It's so important nowadays, and it's going to continue becoming more and more important as time goes on and as the struggle gets worse. It goes on to say the number of teachers who can afford a reasonably priced home in their school district nationwide has collapsed to just 12%, down from 17% last summer and 30% in 2019, amid the worst housing affordability crisis in a generation, according to data from Redfin. Redfin's analysis of median teacher salaries for 2022 across 50 major cities for over 70,000 pre-K-12 public and private schools revealed no teacher in San Jose and San Diego could afford homes within commuting distances to their respective school, which means home and work are 20 minutes during typical rush hour conditions. So much damage has already been done. I couldn't agree anymore. But apparently officials at the Federal Reserve believe that even more carnage is necessary because they are indicating that more rate hikes are on the table. Most Federal Reserve officials signaled during their July policy setting meeting that high inflation still poses an ongoing threat that could necessitate additional interest rate hikes this year. They're literally, like I said, they're playing a role in these in this economic disaster. But like I said, right now is nothing compared to what's coming, right? Like, it's already bad as it is, but what we're going to see in the future is going to be, it's going to be bad, folks. Like, it's going to be much worse. And I'm not saying that to put fear in you. You should not be afraid. And I've said this a lot of times too. You shouldn't be afraid, because being fearful is only going to make it worse for yourself and your own mental health. And fear is also, it's much easier for them to control you when you're living in fear too. So keep that in mind. I'm just making these videos to warn you, because these things are so crucial, and most people still don't realize it. So again, it goes on to say minutes from the U.S. Central Bank's July 25th through 26th meeting released Wednesday showed, that was last month, I believe. Yeah, they're referencing, I think, from last month. Meeting released Wednesday showed that central bank officials observed that inflation remains well above the Fed's 2% target, and that policymakers need to see further signs that aggregate demand and aggregate supply were moving into better balance to be confident that inflation pressures were abating. No, don't do it. Even if rates stay at current levels, we are headed for extreme pain. Raising rates even higher would just be suicidal. But it looks like they're going to do it anyway, and that could push mortgage rates up to the 8% level. Economists have predicted mortgage rates could go above 8% if the economy continues to show signs of strength and the U.S. Federal Reserve decides to raise interest rates again. Mortgage rates have not hit such levels since 2000, according to data compiled by Freddie Mac. Do officials at the Fed actually believe that our system can handle such high rates? Unless the Fed changes course, the housing market is going to absolutely implode. And here's the thing, too. The Fed is not going to change, or at least they're not going to change for the better, right? They're not going to make the economy better at all because, like I said, they're on board with the agendas themselves, and they're puppets for the people who run this world. But they're going to continue making things worse, and it's deliberate and it's by design and it's all planned in advance. And it goes on to say, and of course, the commercial real estate market is already imploding. The chaos that is already transpiring is putting an enormous amount of strain on our financial institutions. I would argue that it's putting way more strain financially on the average hardworking person. But yeah, it goes on to say, and Fitch is warning that we could soon see sweeping rating downgrades in the banking industry. A Fitch ratings analyst warned that the U.S. banking industry has inched closer to another source of turbulence, the risk of sweeping rating downgrades on dozens of U.S. banks that could even include the likes of J.P. Morgan Chase. I know it's been a long read for this article, but I think I'm going to read like maybe a few more lines and then I'm going to end the video off from there. It goes on to say the ratings agency cut its assessment of the industry's health in June, a move that analyst Chris Wolf said went largely unnoticed because it didn't trigger downgrades on banks. In many ways, I feel like I am watching a repeat of 2008. But of course, what's coming is going to be worse than what we saw in 2008. It goes on to say officials at the Fed can clearly see everything that is happening, but they just keep insisting on making things even worse. Exactly. They know what they're doing. Like, don't be fooled, guys. They know exactly what they're doing. You know, none of this stuff is coincidence. I don't even believe in coincidence anyways, because I firmly believe that everything happens for a reason. And like I said, they are on board with these agendas. They are a part of the problem themselves. And they are complicit in these things that are happening. So, yeah. It goes on to say, so I hope that you have been preparing for turbulent times because things are going to get crazy. 100% true. Sadly, the truth is that most Americans are not prepared for tougher times. I cannot stress that enough. I mean, even with what we saw in 2020, which was just a giant test run, you know, people are still giving their hopes up and blindly believing that it's all going to get better. But they fail to realize what's coming. And then it goes on to say, in fact, one recent survey discovered that 72% of Americans are not financially secure. Of course not. We already know the vast majority of people are not. You know, the vast majority of people are struggling. And that's by design, of course. And they're continuing to purposely make the struggle a lot worse. So I can't stress it enough how important it is to prepare for what's to come in the future. But I thank you guys for watching this video. If you watched it this far, and please share the video far and wide. Get the word out to as many people as you possibly can. And yeah, I'm out now.